In this video we're going to complete example 2. This time we're going to be multiplying and dividing by fractions, and to be more specific we're going to be doing this with negative fractions. So let's get right into question A. You'll notice that one of our fractions is negative and one of them is positive. So when I work these out, I just ignore the negative at first and then look at it at the end. So if I'm ignoring the negative, I would just go 2 times 4 and then I would go 3 times 5. So 2 times 4 will give us our numerator of 8 and 3 times 5 will give our denominator of 15. Let's now look at the negative. We had one negative fraction and one positive. We learned earlier that if you have a negative number and you multiply by a positive number, that your solution will actually be negative. So we'll just put a negative in front of our fraction. Let's now look at question B. This time we're dividing a negative fraction by another negative fraction. Now the first thing I'd like to do is I would like to convert this from a division question into a multiplication question. Now we do this by taking the second fraction and flipping it, or finding the reciprocal of the second fraction. Let's do that now. The first fraction stays the same. It stays as negative 1 over 5. Instead of dividing, we're going to multiply, and the second fraction will become negative 4 over 2, which we did by flipping the second fraction. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to ignore the negatives at first. We'll start by multiplying the numerators. 1 times 4 is 4, and the denominators 5 times 2 gives us 10. Now that we've done that, we can have a quick look at our negatives. We had 2 negative fractions. If we've got 2 negative fractions, then our solution must be positive. So we can just leave it as 4 over 10. We can, however, simplify this fraction. When we halve both these numbers, we get 2 over 5. Alright, let's move on to our next two questions. This time you'll notice that we have mixed numerals, and the best way to tackle that is to convert all the mixed numerals into improper fractions. So we'll do that now with question C. We're going to multiply first and then we'll add second. 7 times 1 is 7, 7 plus 4 is 11. That gives us a fraction of 11 over 7, since the denominator stays the same. And we're going to multiply this by the negative fraction, negative 7 over 4. Okay, now let's just multiply it out. Now you'll notice that we have the same number above as we do below. That means we can cancel the numbers. We can cancel out the 7s, being careful not to cancel out this negative here. This means our solution will be 11 over 4, and since we only had one negative fraction and the other one was positive, our solution will be a negative fraction of negative 11 over 4. We would like to convert this to a mixed numeral. 4 fits into 11 twice with a remainder of 3. So let's do that. 2 times with a remainder of 3, and our denominator stays the same. It stays as 4. Our mixed numeral is negative 2 and 3/4. Moving on to question D, the first thing we're going to do is convert our mixed numerals into improper fractions by multiplying and then adding. 7 times 3 is 21, and 21 plus 4 gives us 25. That's our numerator. Our denominator stays the same. It stays as 7. Remembering that this was a negative mixed numeral, so we need to write it as negative 25 over 7. Let's put our divide symbol down, and we're going to convert our next mixed numeral into an improper fraction. We'll multiply and then add. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 3 gives us 15. So 15 at the top of the fraction. The denominator stays the same. It stays as 4. This is a negative number, so we'll put the negative there and we'll put it in brackets. Alright. Next, I would like to convert this from a division question into a multiplication question. My first fraction will stay the same. It will stay as negative 25 over 7. I will change this to multiplication this time, except that my second fraction will be flipped. It will become negative 4 over 15. Now I'd like to point out that both fractions are negative, and we know that if they're both negative, that our final solution will be positive. So I'm actually going to cancel those negatives now. Just makes it a bit easier that I'm not working with negatives anymore. Let's rewrite this as 25 over 7 times 4 over 15, and I'd actually like to make it one single fraction. 25 times 4 at the top and 7 times 15 at the bottom. Now I'd like to do a bit of simplifying before I get my final solution, and I can do that by kind of breaking some numbers up. For example, when I had 25 times 4, I can rewrite that as 5 times 5 times 4. In case you're not sure how I did that, I took the 25 and split it into 5 times 5. Next I'm going to split up the 15. I'll split it into 5 times 3, since 5 times 3 makes 15. That will give me a denominator of 7 times 5 times 3. This is just useful because I can do some cancelling here. I've got a 5 above and a 5 below. I can cancel them and work out my solution, which will be simplified. 5 times 4 at the top is 20, and 7 times 3 at the bottom gives me 21. Anyway, that concludes example 2. Remember to read the description below for links to workbooklets that relate to this video.